Good morning, everyone. Today we will be discussing a new topic about writing process. So to begin with, let me discuss what is this writing process. Writing is productive skill that means the learners have to produce something in the activity of writing. Actually, as one of English language skills, writing is important to be learned by students. According to Nonan, writing is the mental work of inventing ideas, thinking about how to express them, and organizing them into statements and paragraphs that will be clear to a reader. Another definition of writing is that it's the mental work of inventing ideas, thinking about how to express them, and organizing them into statements and paragraphs that will be clear to reader. It means in writing, a writer communicates his or her ideas by considering a known or unknown reader who will get their ideas and their meanings in the form of correct written text. That's the reason why there are stages in writing. So let me define what is this writing process all about in this topic and the stages of writing. So let me share my screen with you. When we speak of writing, of course, it is a process that involves at least four distinct steps: the pre writing, drafting, revising, and editing. It is known as a recursive process. And when we say process, it is a series of actions that follow to some desired end result. In order for the result to be successful, all steps must be followed. So these are the steps that we have to follow in writing: the pre-writing, the drafting, revising, and editing. While you are revising, you might have to return to the pre-writing step to develop and expand your ideas. As mentioned, there are generally five recognized stages in writing. The first one is the pre-writing. In this stage, you plan what you are going to write. You choose your topic, identify your audience and purpose, brainstorm ideas, and organize your information. In other words, you have to write all your ideas, gather all information, and also know your audience and purpose of writing. Before choosing a topic that is suited to your audience, by brainstorming all the things that you have in mind, that is under pre-writing also. Second stage is what we call drafting. You start with a working thesis and then write your ideas in sentences and paragraphs. You follow your pre-writing plan to create first draft of your essay. And then we have revising. This stage involves making changes that will improve your writing. You focus on the large scale elements of the essay, such as overall organization or logical flow of support, effective thesis statement, interesting introduction, and concluding paragraphs. Well developed body paragraphs with clear topic sentences, appropriate tone and style for intended audience and purpose. So, meaning to say, in revising, you were able to find out some corrections. That's why you need to revise it. Corrections from your work. And you may change some of the words that you have used in your writing. You may also revise your introduction and the ending of your own work, or you could also make changes from the concluding paragraphs that you made. And then the next stage is what we call editing and proofreading. So this is the stage of your essay where you polish your essay or your work. You focus on smaller scale yet important essay elements, such as clarity in sentence structure, appropriate word choice, correct spelling and grammar, and accurate document format. And the last one is what we call publishing. You choose a way to present your work to an audience. Okay? So these are some of those stages in the writing process that we have to consider. This is another diagram, but we use other stages in this diagram. We could start in the pre-writing, wherein you will generate ideas and then understand the ideas of others also. When you collate their ideas, you also need to understand their ideas. Collection information from them, note taking, free writing, brainstorming, and looping. That will be under the pre-writing stage. And then after that, you could also make a plan by organizing and focusing ideas, mind mapping, clustering, listing, and make an outline. And then after planning, you could also make drafting, wherein writing initial draft of a text, focusing mainly on the development, organization, and elaboration of ideas. And then you could also make reflection, letting work sit, coming back to it at a later point, wherein you could ask yourself whether you made a work really that you could get really the intention of the readers to continue reading your work, or you may ask yourself of your work and make a reflection on it. And another one is another stage that you could use during the process of writing is what we call review. In the review, you could gather all the feedbacks from others to help you up to come up with a good and better composition or essay. And then next, revision. In revision, you further developing and clarifying ideas, the structure of the text. So you may change some of the words that you use. You take a look at also the grammar in your composition, in your writings, and if there are corrections, you make revision. And then the last one would be editing and proofwriting, focusing attention on the surface level features of the text. Well, you could also make additional research or idea, okay, that you could also get from other sources so that you could come up also with a good composition or another or a good work. Next is what we call revision. Okay, so we have to consider also revision as one of those stages. Good writers will go through multiple drafts and revisions before moving on to the editing and proofreading stage. Revising differs from editing and proofreading as it requires the writer to look at large scale or global matters in their essay. So, this is the focus of our lesson today. It has something to do with revision. So, what is this revision? Revision is a process in writing of rearranging, adding or removing paragraphs, sentences, or words. Writers may revise their writing after a draft is complete or during the composing process. Another, why is it that there's a need for us to revise our work? Why do we need to revise our work? Revision literally means to see again. So you have to look at something from a fresh, critical perspective. Go over with your work, try to analyze it, evaluate your work, and make some revision. It is an ongoing process of rethinking the paper, reconsidering your arguments, reviewing your evidence, refining your purpose, reorganizing your presentation, reviving stale prose. This is what we mean when we speak of revision. So I hope you were able to find out the importance of revision in your writings. Why do we need to revise? So that, of course, whatever work that we made would be pleasing to the readers. And they will continue reading it if they find interest in your work. So, why is revision important? Writing is a process of discovery, and you don't always produce your best stuff when you first get started. That's the reason why you need to take note, write down all your ideas, because sometimes in the first start of doing or in writing, sometimes there are a lot of errors that we make. So revision is now a chance for you to look critically at what you have written to see. So If it's really worth saying, you could ask yourself if your work really worth it. If it says what you wanted to say, the very purpose of writing, if a reader will understand what you are saying. So I hope from this you were able to get the importance of writing process, especially when it comes to revision. Take note that according to Brown, writing is a transaction with words whereby the writers will be free from what they presently think, feel, and perceive. It has meaning that writing deals with the use of words in written form to deliver someone's idea. So the writers need to select and use appropriate words based on the situation and occasion because they cannot meet the reader directly. So these are the important things that we have to know. Why do we need to make revision in our work? Actually, according to Gibbons, he explains that writing involves writing something, producing a written product of some kind, and that product cannot be divorced from its purpose and from the context in which it will be read. So, meaning to say, before you write, you already have in mind your purpose of writing your work. What's your very purpose of writing? Therefore, as a writer, you need to know how to express the message in written words and choose the best form for writing to make your ideas clear. It can be concluded that writing becomes a tool to practice and reinforce the specific grammatical and lexical patterns that is used to represent your ideas, feelings in such a way as a communication tool to the reader. So take note of the stages now of the revision process. The first one is to examine the balance within your paper. Are some parts out of proportion with others? Do you spend too much time on one trivial point and neglect a more important point? Do you give lots of detail early on and then let your points get thinner by the end? So, these are some of the ways to examine whether there is a balance within in your paper. Next is what we call check that you have kept your promises to your readers. Does your paper follow through on what the thesis promises? Do you support all the claims in your thesis? Are the tone and formality of the language appropriate for your audience? Next one is check the organization. So, how are you going to check the organization of your paper? So, take note of these questions. We have there, does your paper follow a pattern that makes sense? Do the transitions move your readers smoothly from one point to the next? Do the topic sentences of each paragraph appropriately introduce what that paragraph is about? Would you would your paper work better if you move some things around? So these are some of the questions that you could use in checking the organization of your paper. Another is you also need to check your information. So here are the questions that could serve as guide. One is that, are all your facts accurate? There should be accuracy. Are any of your statements misleading? So you have to take note of that one. Have you provided enough detail to satisfy readers' curiosity also? Have you explained your work properly so that your audience could understand the very message that you want to convey in your work? Are there enough detail to satisfy readers' curiosity? Have you cited all your information appropriately? So, these are some of those things that you need to consider in checking your information in your work. So, how do you revise your writing? So, take note of the following in revising your writing. Beside from those that I mentioned a while ago, by checking information, I forgot the other one. You also need to check your conclusion. This is the last one. So you ask this question to yourself: does the last paragraph tie the paper together smoothly and end on a stimulating note? Or does the paper just die a slow, redundant lame or abrupt death? So conclusion is very important also. You may leave questions to the mind of your readers, or you could make use of strategy so that they will continue reading your work, and they will make a follow up in everything that you do and patronize your work if it is published. Going back to the questions that I asked you a while ago, how do you revise your writing? Find your main point. What's the point of your work? Identify your readers. It's very important to know who are your readers. For whom? For whom is your work? And the very purpose of it. Evaluate your evidence. What are some of the supporting documents, references, sources that you may use or that you've used in your writing. Save only the good pieces. If there are some misleading words, you may remove them and revise, tighten, and clean up your language. Eliminate mistakes in grammar and usage. And the last one is to switch from writer centered to the reader centered. It's not about you now, but it's about your reader who will read your work. As Nonan explains, that the most difficult of macro skills for all languages users, whether it is first, second, or foreign language learner, is learning to write fluently and expressively. So I hope you learned from today's lesson.